In this video, we're going to see how to replace a sky behind trees. We'll see how to go from this to this. Hi, this is Rick from EssentialPhotoshopElements.com. Let's go over to Elements and get started. I'm using Photoshop Elements 2018 for this video, but it'll work the same in any older version of Elements beginning with Photoshop Elements 11. It'll also work the same in Photoshop Elements 9 and 10, but the workspace interface in those two versions is a little different. The photo I have open was sent to me by Steven in an email. He said he wanted to put a new sky behind the trees. This technique works best for images like this one, where the sky is either totally blown out or very light, so that there's good contrast between the sky and the trees. It's very difficult to get a good selection of the sky because of all the small areas of sky between the leaves and branches. So instead of trying to select the sky area, we're going to create a mask for it. Let's start by making a duplicate of the background layer. We can do that by pressing Command J on a Mac, or it would be Control J on a PC. And now we have a new layer, a new duplicate layer of the background, and it's called Layer 1. And we're going to change this to a black and white. So I'm going to double click on the name Layer 1 to highlight the text. And then I'm just going to type in black and white and press enter or return. Next, we're going to create a solid color layer. To do that, click on this half white, half blue circle at the top of the layers panel, and then choose solid color at the top of the list by clicking on it. When I do that, the color picker appears. We want our solid color to be green. So you see these three boxes labeled RGB, which stands for red, green, and blue. I decided to use green since the leaves in our photo are mostly green. The boxes for the RGB can each have a value from 0 up to 255. I want my green to be the highest value, so I'm going to click once inside the box to highlight the value, and then I'll type 255. Make sure that the red and blue boxes are set to 0. If they're not, you can just click inside their box and type 0. Click OK to close the color picker and accept the changes. Next, we're going to change the blend mode for our new green fill layer from normal to multiply. So just click on normal and then go down to multiply and click on that. And when we do that, we see that our image is green over in the active image area. Now let's merge our green color fill layer with the duplicate of the background layer, which is named black and white. Make sure that the color fill layer is active. I can tell that it is because it's highlighted in blue, but if it's not, you can just click on it to make it active. And go up to the layer menu and click on merge down. Next, we want to change the black and white layer to a black and white. To do that, go up to the enhance menu and choose adjust color and then adjust hue saturation. And the hue saturation dialog box appears. Click on the box at the top that says master and go down to green and click on that. So now just the green channel is going to be affected. Then click on the lightness slider and drag it all the way over to the right. Now click OK to close the dialog box and accept the change. What you see in the active image area is the beginning of our black and white mask. Our goal is for the sky area to be white and everything else to be black. So to begin doing that, go to the Enhance menu and choose Adjust Lighting and then Levels. And the Levels dialog box appears. This black thing that looks like a graph is called a histogram. Notice right below the histogram are three arrows, a black one, a gray one, and a white one. If we click and drag the black arrow towards the center, it'll make the dark areas darker. And if you drag the white arrow towards the center, it'll make the light areas lighter. We're going to slide those arrows to make all of our sky area white and everything else black. Our sky area already looks pretty white, so I'm just going to drag the white arrow a little bit to the left. Maybe something like that. Now I'll click and drag the black slider to the right, and I'll go until the leaves and the tree trunks turn black. So let's go to about there. I didn't want to slide it further than I need to get the trees black, because the white sky area will start to fill in if I do. If you don't see your image change in the active image area when you move those sliders, make sure you have this preview box checked. Click OK to close the levels dialog box and accept the change. I'm going to turn off the visibility of the black and white layer so we can see our original photo. I did that by clicking on that little eye next to the black and white layer thumbnail. I want to point out that this photo has some snow on the ground and that it's about the same brightness of our sky area. So let me just temporarily create a layer here so I can show you what I'm talking about. Let's see. And I'll make it red so it shows up. I'm talking about right down here. You can see there's some snow on the ground, and we don't want that to be included in our mask. And also there's kind of these gray areas like right in between these trees here, and I don't know if it's the background of the forest of more trees back there, or if there's a hill or something, but you can kind of see it in this area too, and also down here. So we do not want to include those areas in our mask. Just be aware of that. All we want is our sky to be white and everything else to be totally black. So with that in mind, let's turn the visibility back on for our black and white layer by clicking on the eye next to it again. Now we know that this white area near the bottom is snow and that these gray areas are something other than sky. For our mask, we only want the sky areas to be white and everything else to be black. So I'm going to fill those areas with black. To do that, we can start by making a selection around those areas. I'm going to use the lasso tool to make my selection. The lasso tool is located in the bottom left of the select section of the toolbox. I'll click on it to make it the active tool. Now I'll start over on the left edge of my image and click and drag around all those non-sky areas with the lasso tool. Let me turn off my red so I can see what I'm doing a little better. So I'm gonna get all of this, and then this is all kind of gray in here. And then this last part over on the right side. Then I'm going to go completely off the right edge of my photo and drag all the way down to the bottom, to beyond the bottom of my photo, and then drag all the way back over to the left and get close to where I started my selection, which is right here, and then I'll release the mouse button to close off the selection. And you can see the whole bottom part of the image is selected as indicated by the marching ants. Next, I want to fill that selected area with black. First, I have to make the black and white layer active to make sure I'm working on that. So now I can go up to the Edit menu and say Fill Selection by clicking on it, and the Fill Layer dialog box appears. And then I'm going to click in this Use field, and we get this pop-up list. And I want to use black to fill my selection, so I'll click on black, and then I'll click OK to close the dialog box and accept my change. Now the selected area is filled with black, and that's exactly what we want. I can deselect by pressing Command D on a Mac or Control D on a PC. Next, let's make a selection of the entire black and white layer. So to do that, press Command A on a Mac, or it would be Control A on a PC. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but there are marching ants going around the entire outside edges of our image, indicating that that whole active layer is selected. So with the whole layer selected, I'm going to copy it by pressing Command C on a Mac or Control C on a PC. Now I'm going to hide the visibility of our black and white layer again by clicking the eye next to it in the Layers panel. I'm going to click on the background layer in the Layers panel to make it the active layer. Next, I'm going to duplicate the background layer by pressing Command-J on a Mac or Control-J on a PC. And we get another duplicate of the background layer, and it's named Layer 2 by default. Now let's add a layer mask to that duplicate layer, and we do that by clicking on the Add a Layer Mask icon at the top of the Layers panel. Remember, a little earlier we copied our black and white layer by pressing Command or Control C. So now that copy is in our computer memory, and I want to paste it into our layer mask on layer 2. To do that, I need to make our layer mask visible in the active image area. The trick to see your layer mask is to hold down the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a PC as you click on the layer mask's thumbnail in the Layers panel. So I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key, and now I'll click right on my layer mask. And then I'll release the mouse button and the Alt or Option key. Actually, there's not much to see because our layer mask is totally white, but now I'm going to paste our previously copied black and white layer into it. To do that, press Command V on a Mac or Control V on a PC. Now our layer mask looks exactly like our black and white layer. So I'm going to hide the visibility of our layer mask the same way that we showed it, which is by holding down the Option or Alt key while clicking on the thumbnail for the layer mask. And we still have that selection around our entire layer, so I'm going to deselect by pressing Command or Control D. Right now, all of the black areas of the layer mask are hiding those parts of layer 2. You don't see that in the active image area because we can see those hidden areas from the background layer. But you can see it if I turn off the visibility of the background layer. I'll do that by clicking on the eye next to the background layer's thumbnail. With the visibility of the background layer off, we just see layer 2 in the active image area, and most of layer 2 is being hidden by its layer mask. The only areas visible of layer 2 are the sky areas, which are totally white, so it doesn't look like much. What we really want that layer mask on layer 2 to do is to make everything visible except for the sky, the exact opposite of what we have now. So we need to invert our layer mask, and we can do that, but first we want to make sure that the layer mask is active. I can tell that mine is active because it has that light blue border around it, but if it's not, just click on its thumbnail to make it active. Now to invert it, press Command-I on a Mac or Control-I on a PC. When I do that, we can see everything except the sky in the active image area, and that's exactly what we want. Now let's bring in our new sky. To do that, go up to the File menu and choose Place by clicking on it. Then navigate to where your sky photo is located on your computer. Mine's right here, so I'll click on it and then click on Place. And the dialog box closes and my new sky is pasted in as a new layer into my document. And it has a bounding box around it that you can use to adjust your sky photo if you need to. In my example, I do need to adjust the size because it doesn't cover all of the sky area. There are 8 tiny squares around the bounding box that you can use to resize your sky. I could click and drag this top center square and pull the sky all the way up to the top of my image. So I'll do that. And then release the mouse button. But if you use any of the center squares to size your photo, it distorts the sky because the proportion of your sky is changed. You can maybe get away with it, but just so you know, you can keep the original proportions if you use any of the 4 corner squares and drag diagonally. So I'll put this back down a little bit just to show you that if I click and drag diagonally on a corner handle, it keeps the proportions of the sky. And you can also click inside the bounding box and move it around to reposition it if you want. So I think I'll put mine maybe about here. And once you get your sky placed and positioned and sized how you want it, just click the green check mark to accept the change. The other thing I want to do is change the sky layer from a smart object. It comes in as a smart object automatically when you use the place command, but smart objects have some editing restrictions. You can tell that it's a smart object by this little icon on the thumbnail. To change it to a regular layer, go up to the Layer menu and choose Simplify Layer by clicking on it. And when I do that, that little icon disappears from my layer of the sky, so now we know that it's just a regular layer as opposed to a smart object. Right now our new sky is in front of the trees and covering them up. We can fix that by moving the sky layer below the trees layer in the Layers panel. And to do that, you just click and drag the sky layer below the trees layer. So I'll click and drag down, and once you see the double horizontal lines appear below the trees layer, you know you can let go and the sky is placed below the trees layer. It looks pretty good, but let's zoom up and take a closer look. So I'm going to press Command or Control plus sign a couple times, and let me move it up to this area so we can see some of these places a little better. You can see a light halo around some of the leaves and branches. And this is a common problem with this technique. It's most noticeable on the blue areas of the sky. We can eliminate those halos by changing the blend mode of our trees layer. To do that, click on the thumbnail of the tree layer in the Layers panel. Then click on where it says Normal at the top of the Layers panel. So we're going to change the blend mode. And we get the list of all the different blend modes. There are two different blend modes that help get rid of the halos. One is the darken blend mode right here, and the other is called darker color, which is down here. I found that for my example, darker color works best, so I'll choose that by clicking on it. Before I do that, watch the halo areas that are most noticeable by the blue sky. I'll click on it now, and the halos disappear. When you change the blend mode to get rid of the halos, there is a slight trade-off because you might have noticed some of the smaller leaves and branches also disappear. But it's pretty minimal, and once you zoom back out, it won't be as noticeable. One other thing you should check for after changing the blend mode is to make sure no unwanted color shifts appear in your image. This is possible if any areas of the trees layer are a lighter color than the blue in the sky. I can see some of the sky coming through on the tree trunks in my example. And let me turn this back on, the visibility, and show you what I'm talking about. I'll get my brush tool, and you can see in the tree trunk right here, and there's a little right here. And the other areas right here. There's a little bit down here. I don't know if you can see this in the video. There's another spot here, a little spot here. So you just have to kind of scroll around your image and see if you see anything like that, because you want to fix that if you do. And the way that you can fix that is just add a layer mask to your sky layer. I'm going to turn off the visibility of those red marks. I'm going to make my sky layer the active layer by clicking on it, and then I'll add a layer mask to the sky layer by clicking on the Add a Layer Mask icon. And now I'll get my brush, which is already active, but if it's not, just click on it in the toolbox. And we want to make sure that our foreground color is set to black. The foreground color is this big square at the bottom of the toolbox. Right now you can see that mine is white and I need it to be black, so to change it to black we can switch the foreground background color by clicking on this little double-headed curved arrow right here. So I'll click on that, and now my foreground color is black, which is what I want. And I have my brush tool active, so I'll move over to my active image area, And I'm going to make my brush a little bigger. You can size your brush by using the left and right bracket keys, which are located on your keyboard right next to the letter P. And the right bracket key makes your brush bigger each time you click on it, smaller each time you click on the left bracket key. I also want to make sure that I have a hard-edged brush. If you click on this brush preview down in the tool options, any of these brushes which look like they have hard edges, they are hard edges, so you can choose any of those. Just for comparison, these are the soft edge brushes. You can see the edges are kind of fuzzy looking. We want a hard edge brush, so go back to those and double click on one. Change your size to what you want it. And now I can just paint over those blue areas because I'm painting on my layer mask with black because my foreground color is black. And when I do that, that blue is hidden from that layer and we see our original tree trunk underneath it. There's a big area right here that I'm gonna try to get. If you go outside what you wanted to do a little bit like I did right here, you can switch your foreground color to white by clicking on that little double-headed curved arrow again and then paint over that area, and that'll bring the blue back. Now I'm going to go back to black. Any of those blue areas I'll just paint over. To scroll down, I'm going to press and hold the space bar on my keyboard, and then you get the hand tool, and then keep holding the space bar down. You can click and drag to where you want on your photos. I'm just going to drag down here a little bit and check out the rest of the tree. I think for the most part it's pretty good now. There might be more, but I'm not going to take any more time in this video. Let's take a look at the before and after. First I'm going to zoom back down by double clicking on the hand tool. That puts it in the fit to window. We can look at the before and after by holding the Option or Alt key on our keyboard and clicking on the eye next to the background thumbnail. So there's before, then click on it again. You can see the after. So before and after. And I think it looks pretty good. Until next time, this is Rick from EssentialPhotoshopElements.com saying take care.